Today's Talk About It Tuesday question is, I keep hearing on the news that the inflation rate has dropped down to about 2% from a high of 8% following the COVID crisis, yet I don't see prices going down. Can you explain how the inflation rate has dropped so much, but the cost of goods has not gone down? Oh, this is a great lesson in economics and inflation. I don't think most people really understand what inflation is and what it represents. So inflation simply means the increase in the cost of goods and services. And generally what causes inflation, which is the rise in prices, is that demand exceeds supply. Right. So when you have a lot of demand for something, have a lot of people trying to buy something, and the supply is limited, it raises the price of goods and services. That's the primary way. There could be an increase in the cost of actual manufacturing, which can also cause inflation. But in general, what we're talking about is the demand exceeds supply. So when we talk about an inflation rate, it's the percentage of increase in the cost of goods and services, usually measured annually. So what is the annual increase in the cost of goods and services? So you're probably saying, but why do we have to have an increase anyway? Inflation itself is a sign of a healthy economy. That means an economy is growing. That means consumer spending is high, which means people have money, which means people are employed. So it means businesses are doing well. It is a sign of a healthy economy when you have inflation, but inflation in a healthy economy, in a good, stable, healthy economy, is around 2 to 4%. When it exceeds 2 to 4%, it starts to hurt people and people stop spending, and you trigger what we call a recession, which is a deflationary period. So deflation is actually bad. Deflation means not only does the cost of goods and services go down, but the cost or the value of assets goes down, right? So deflation, if the cost of real estate, homes, goes down, it's a bad thing because people lost wealth. If businesses decline because people aren't buying in a deflationary period, that means the value of stocks goes down. And how does that affect most people who don't invest in individual stocks? Their retirement accounts, their 401ks decrease in value. So we don't want a deflationary period. So let me just explain. If the inflation rate goes down, it doesn't mean prices go down. It simply means the rate at which prices increase slows down. So even though and I'll just give you simple numbers. If something cost $100 pre-COVID, and because it was a supply chain issue, yet there was still a demand post-COVID, when we had an 8% inflation rate, that means that the cost of that went up 8%, right? So you would pay $108 for that same thing you could have gotten for $100 prior to that. That's a huge increase in a single year. That's why it hit so hard. Now the inflation rate has gone down to about 2%. It doesn't mean the price goes down back to 100 as a baseline. The baseline is 108. Now we'll only increase by 2%, right? So if we do some math with that, it'd be maybe $116, something like that. You do 0.02 times 108, and that'll give you your answer. So that means it only increases at a lower rate. It doesn't mean the price drops back down as if there's some magical baseline. So inflation is pretty constant until you get it to a number that's too high and it's unsustainable. And then you'll see a deflationary period, but we call that a recession. That is a bad economy. So even though people are complaining, the economy, we're actually in a good, solid economy with good growth, healthy growth. a healthy inflation rate, a healthy employment rate, and healthy consumer spending, but the prices pretty much are not going to go down. Some things probably should have gone down because the inflation wasn't caused by increase in demand, but supply side issues, and some things have, right? When we look at the cost of some big ticket items who have manufacturing issues, their prices have gone down somewhat. Things that tend to be what we call sticky are food prices. They tend never to go back down, although they probably should. And housing, the cost of housing, meaning rent. Once it hits a number, we rarely ever see it go down unless you have a situation where the amount of available apartments exceeds the amount of renters, right? And then you'll see rents come down. But in general, the cost of housing, the cost of food generally don't go down. They just continuously go up. But you might see it in other places, but you do not want deflation, because deflation is a signal of a bad economy. We want stable, steady growth of about 2 to 4%. That's a healthy economy. So hopefully that makes it clear to you. Yes, the inflation rate has gone down significantly, but prices will not follow. They'll just go up at a slower rate. So love to hear your thoughts on this, but please like, share, subscribe, keep the questions coming, and I'll see you next Tuesday.